Are you having a day where you're not getting much done? Well, this video is for you. I'm going to show you 9 steps to help you quickly get back to focusing on what's important, and you're not going to be struggling to work effectively anymore. Instead, we're going to replace that with some complete confidence and clarity that you're learning or working in the best way possible, no matter whether you feel like it or not. My name's Keshav, and let's talk about it. The first step that you need to take is to find or create a quiet, focused space. One of the best things about when we were studying back at school is the power of environment change. Think about it. You had a classroom, a group of fellow students, and also a teacher or authority figure who was there to make sure you focused. And the truth is, all of these things forced you to try and change your behavior. This is what we need to replicate when we are struggling to get work done. In his book, Atomic Habits, James Clear talks about the power of how changing your environment changes your focus. He called it Lewin's equation. If you're studying or working from home, how could you replicate those things from back when you were at school? Or maybe you're still there as well. If you're working remotely, how do you create that shift? And here's my suggestion. Set aside and create ownership again over your workspace. Even if it's as simple as, I'm going to sit in a specific chair every single day at a specific time in a specific way in certain specific clothes. And when you sit there, imagine that the rest of the world is switched off to you and all you're focused on is your studies. Some of the things that work for me are using brown noise, for example. I've posted a link in the description of this video since there's some really good evidence that shows that it helps you to focus because of the way that it cancels out other noises in your environment. You're switching off one sense. The other thing that works for me is drinking some Indian masala tea or some yerba mate when I start a work session, and helps me to really get into that zone. The key is find and create a space and make sure that you just show up every single day at your spot. Make it your goal just to get there. Open your laptop up and get started. The second tip that I have for you is about getting yourself digitally organized. Complexity and a lack of clarity are the enemies of getting things done. So get serious about organizing yourself. Create a calendar and a to-do list, and then stick to both of these things. Everyone knows the power of these ideas, but very few people have the discipline and consistency to stick to them. You don't need anything complicated, but make your life easier by clearing your schedule and focusing on what matters. The more uncertain your organization is, the more uncertain your life is going to be. So don't leave these things to chance. Think about it. A plane takes off by design, not by desire. So if you want to work efficiently and effectively, switch off those random tabs, close them, stop multitasking, and start single tasking. Focus on one thing at a time and keep doing that until you finish, and then move on to the next task. Every Sunday, I suggest you block out an hour to turn all your devices off and write down every single task that you could possibly get done this week. Write it on paper, and that way it's certain what you need to do. It's not living inside your head and taking up mental clutter, but it's on a piece of paper or a digital document. And sort everything out. Organize yourself. Like I said, the more uncertain your organization is, the more uncertain your life will be. But there's a problem. When you take that hour to write down what you need to get done, how do you know what to focus on? And a proven way to do this is a 5-step coaching method called the Trow Model. It's something that I cover in my Discovery mini course. I've also created in this mini course a workbook and a step-by-step question prompt exercise that, even if you do just for 10 minutes, is going to help you feel clearer, more organized, and more focused. What most people do is they plan and organize in a very haphazard and scattergun way. But the truth is, some things are more important than others. And that's why Trow, which is a model that's used by millions of people successfully all over the world, will help. It takes you through a logical step-by-step formula of goals, reality, options, and way forward. So check out Discovery. The link is in the description if you want to learn more. And you also get a community of support and more resources. But let's get back to the video. Tip number 3 actually has nothing to do with study tips or hacks or anything else, but it's simply to take breaks and move your body. A still body is an inspired body. Here's an example. Neuroscientists took an MRI scan of a person's neural activity after sitting for 20 minutes and here after walking for 20 minutes. And as you can see quite clearly, the image on the right, it shows far more activity in the brain's neural pathways than the image on the left. So if you find your energy, your motivation has been lagging and you're not focused, ask yourself, when was the last time you got up, you had a drink of water and you walked around for a bit? Nowadays, most of us have phones that can track our movement and steps. So if yours does that, use that feature to help you. Make it a goal to reach at minimum 6,000 to 8,000 steps per day. Make it a goal to do at minimum one short 15-minute walk in the middle of your day so that you break things up and you're moving your body. You're getting that blood flowing to all parts of you so that you can stay focused for longer. Otherwise, you'll fall into that trap where it's easy to just stay on the couch, stay in your chair, scroll on social media in this endless loop of mindless distraction. That's what the companies want, but it's not what you need. All right, all these tips so far, they're great, but let's be honest. Sometimes what you're learning or what you're doing is boring, it's not interesting, and it's hard to understand. What are you going to do in those scenarios? When the learning or the work gets boring, hard, and uncomfortable, ask yourself, how do you tend to react? What is your internal dialogue? And one thing I've learned over the years, the hard way, is just because what I'm learning or doing isn't engaging doesn't mean that I have to be disengaged and uninterested. I can be curious. I can still control how I approach that, how I feel about those tasks, and ask myself questions. Questions like, how could I make my approach to this task or activity more useful with less resistance? And if it's something I don't understand, I can ask myself, who could teach me? Where can I find this information? The most focused people, they're not the people who have something you don't. They're just people who understand that just to get started doesn't mean you have to be motivated. The motivation and the focus will come later. But one mental trick that's really helped me is to realize that my focus doesn't come at the beginning of that work bout or session. It comes somewhere halfway through maybe, or maybe not. But the important thing is just getting started and controlling my mental story about what I'm doing and trying to be more active and engaged in what I'm learning. Just like when I'm at the gym, I have to exert pressure and force to do a bench press. In the same way, I just have to push myself and try. Now, I'm no fan of being a victim, surrendering my power, and making excuses, but equally, I think it's also important to be realistic. We live in uncertain times where things are different and changing, and that's okay. I want you to accept what you feel. I want you to accept that things are going to be different to what you may be used to, and a part of that is looking at your overall mental health and well-being and practicing some compassion, some acceptance, setting some realistic expectations for ourselves. Don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying give up, accept it, and just do nothing. I'm saying embrace where you are, embrace your starting point, and from that point, decide what is it that I could do. And this is why that Trow model I mentioned before is so powerful, because you're not going to be perfectly focused overnight and change everything. So if you're having an unproductive day, accept that and then ask yourself, okay, what is one thing that I could do? Maybe I can reply to my emails. What is one thing that I could do? Maybe I could just get started with that project that requires a lot of creative and mental capacity. What I'm saying here is expect that your lazy chimp brain is the one that's going to show up, and plan for that. And when that happens, ask yourself, what are you going to do? Which habits or actions can you decide now to do to help you to try and make an effort when you don't feel like it? How can you still get things done at your laziest, least motivated state? And how can you design for that, like that aeroplane analogy that we talked about earlier? Now, the most important tip of this video is blank, because I want you to decide. Why should I be the only one giving you ideas? Go to the comments section right now, and I want you to post what is the number one thing that you think you can do to salvage this unproductive day, this unproductive moment, and what do you advise to other people? Because I believe the best answers aren't just going to come from me, they come from all of us, our entire community. You are the best expert of your life. So go ahead, share your best tip in the comments now, and I want you to upvote or give a like or a thumbs up to the ones that you see in the comments right now that you think are most powerful. And when you're done, maybe in a week or two, come back and have a look. How has the best rated comment or the best liked comment changed? Maybe maybe we can think of it like a game. Whichever one gets the most likes wins. In order to understand focus, it's important to ask the question, why? What's behind that behavior? The problem isn't necessarily that you have an unproductive day. It's that you have a series of unproductive moments where you're not engaged, where you're not present and focused. So examine your behavior. And if you want to find out more about that, click here to watch another video on this topic.